I am happy to report that about 18 hours later, I can pretty much feel my toes again. Welcome to another edition of Inside Coverage here on Yahoo, a Monday edition after Week 15, pending the Monday night game, of course, in Pittsburgh. My name is Andrew Siciliano. We are here 4 days a week with the how and the why, any and everything you need to know around the National Football League. We now have 12 teams eliminated, the Vikings, the Bengals, and the Kansas City Chiefs being the three latest to find out they're not going to make the tournament. And we have two teams in. The Rams and the Broncos are both in. And we have two friends in, as always, here on Monday. Our Yahoo senior writers, Charles Robinson and Frank Schwab. Gentlemen, happy Monday to you and yours. Charles, what's the coldest game or the coldest situation at a game you have ever been in?
Oh, man. I don't remember the year. I don't remember the game, probably because it froze my brain as I walked from a courtyard in Minneapolis. I walked to the Metrodome. And when I got to the Metrodome, and it could have been more than like a 15-minute walk, I had ice all the way around my mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Like my
awesome?
Mustache, everything, the beard, it was all ice frozen around my mouth. That is the coldest I have ever experienced. And I lived in Chicago. I was on the sidelines, at times during some games at Soldier Field, where there was one game in Atlanta when I remember it was 6 degrees, but the feels like with the wind was like -20. It was worse in Minnesota. Minneapolis is just god awful. I don't know how.
It's the coldest place on earth. I don't think Antarctica is colder than Minneapolis. I swear.
Yeah.
By the way,
Frank,
this one's easy for me. It's incredibly memorable because this was a very memorable game. Ravens Broncos playoff game in Denver. We had a very, very cold streak here. And our old colleague, Les Carpenter, was up there with me. And late in the game, he says, it looked like the Broncos are going to win, right? Like the Ravens are way backed up. He's like, let's go down to the field for the end of the game. I'm like, why? It's 70 degrees in this press box. That's stupid. He's like, no, we can get color, like guys coming off the field and all this. I'm like, fine, Les, I'll go. Cool. I walk through the tunnel, and the first play I see is Joe Flacco hitting Jacoby Jones for a 70-yard touchdown. Raheem Moore still displaying that ball. So that's fine, but now we're going to overtime. It is below zero in Denver. That game goes to overtime. So we were standing on the sideline the whole time. It was a great seat. I actually hate watching football at field level. I don't know how coaches do it. I don't know how they see anything. But every play looks like it's like some miracle, like 50-yard play, and then you're like, to gain a 2. Like the game moves crazy fast down there at eye level. Anyway, the game is done. Justin Tucker hits a field goal. I tried taking a step and literally almost fell over because my feet were completely numb. I could not walk. I had to like recombobulate for a second. Easily the coldest I've ever been, but yes, a very, very memorable game that I can tell that story about.
Yes. Yesterday might have been the coldest for me, and I had that foot issue as well. So I was at Bears-Browns yesterday, Soldier Field, Chicago. I think it eventually got up to like 8 degrees, they claim, at the stadium, but I don't believe that. To quote Ron Burgundy, you are lying. I don't believe you. Down to the field before, it was clearly a negative wind chill. I woke up at 6:30. We're staying in downtown Chicago. Went to get a cup of coffee. Could have had a cup of coffee in the hotel. No, but I wanted to go out there, do my Starbucks order, and go walk 2 blocks to breathe in that cold air. So at 6:30 in the morning, my iPhone said that the wind chill was -15. That's what my actual phone said in the standard front page iPhone weather app. And I hadn't experienced this since Chicago when I lived there in the 90s, or Syracuse before that, where I went to school, where it's so cold that the very first time you breathe that air in, everything inside your nose turns to icicles. So I believe it was Ren and Stimpy that called them your nose goblins, right? Your nose goblins freeze immediately. They just turn to icicles. And on the sideline before the game, Brown sideline, the big heaters, you see them all the time on TV. Like, they have the heaters on the sideline. Guys can stay warm. They're really just like jet engines. I mean, they're jet engines on the sideline. And when you stand near them, they tell you, don't stand like closer than 5 feet. They're that hot. You can't get close to them. Right, you're going to light on fire. It was so cold yesterday that when you stood right up on them, You didn't even feel the heat for like a good 5-6 seconds. It's like, are these things on? Yes, they're on. Eventually, you would feel them. Anyway, with about an hour left in my cross-country flight, my toes finally stopped tingling, but was walking out of the stadium with former Steeler Max Starks. We're walking through Soldier Field down to the tunnel there, and Max had called the game on ESPN radio. And we're both limping. And my partner, Nathan Zagura, he's limping as well. And I turned to Max and I'm like, dude, is that a football injury? Old offensive lineman. Like, he could be limping. It's understandable. And he goes, no, those are my frozen feet. I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah, frostbite,
same, because I'm limping too. Anyway, let's get to football. I mentioned the three teams that are eliminated: the Vikings, the Bengals, and the Kansas City Chiefs, who lose Patrick Mahomes with the ACL. It's just brutal to see. You knew that the Chiefs' elimination was imminent after the way the season has gone the last couple of weeks. But when it finally did happen, it's jarring because of the injury. But maybe because of the injury, a lot of the Chiefs didn't even realize it had happened, and that is the elimination. Check this out on the podium after the game.
Still had a fighting chance. Are we out of the playoffs? We are? Okay.
Chris Jones didn't know. And that was an awkward moment. And you see a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro, the look on his face when he realizes this truly is the end of the road. You are writing on Yahoo, and I read the article this morning, great one. Recommend everyone read what C-Rob wrote about the Chiefs being at a crossroads here. You can call it the end of the dynasty. Okay, well, I mean, they lost the Super Bowl a year ago. Is that really a continuation of a dynasty? Who knows? Dynasty talk is overrated. That's nonsense for the barbershop and the screaming head TV shows. But it is a point in this Chiefs timeline, Charles, where I think we have to step back and legitimately assess, where do they go from here?
Yeah, I mean, is it an intermission or is this the end, right? Like,
what is it?
I think we asked that with the Patriots, right? The Patriots went 10 years without, going to a Super Bowl. And then once they got it kicked back in gear again, it was great. The dynasty ended up spanning 20 years, and it was just a long intermission. Now we have to see, how do the Chiefs ultimately respond to this? And there's going to be some really interesting things that they have to attack here because, you consider Patrick Mahomes, despite not playing out the entire season, he ran for more yardage this year than at any other point in his career. He's now going to have a surgically repaired ACL, which means what? He's going to wear a brace likely on that knee, and you don't want Patrick Mahomes running the football anymore on a surgically repaired ACL. Which means Andy Reid's going to have to stare at the offense and go, how can I change this and improve this and grow the scheme around Patrick Mahomes that takes that burden away from him? We can't have him having his career high in rushing coming off of a season-ending knee injury. So there's that. You have to stare into the backfield. You have to figure out how to get consistency on the offensive line. You have to find some explosiveness in the receiving core. And, oh, by the way, Travis Kelce, we've probably seen him play his last game in the NFL where he was still trying to vie for a playoff bid in the loss on Sunday. There's just so much now that the Chiefs have to think about. And Mahomes will not be there for the offseason passing program. He will not be there likely, at the very least, up until training camp. And we'll see. We're going to have to see how the surgery turns out, how aggressive the Chiefs and Mahomes himself want to be with the rehab. There's nothing but, the Chiefs are made of questions right now because of this injury. It's, I called it just the cruelest form of halting momentum in their season. They didn't just lose a game. They didn't just lose a playoff bid. They lost effectively everything. 7 straight AFC title games, their quarterback for at least the next 6 months. Ton of questions now facing the Chiefs, and it's going to be on everybody answering those, from the front office to the coaching staff and Mahomes himself.
Yeah, and Charles, we talked about this last week. I said this is just a pause of the dynasty. Because I truly just believe in the Chiefs' infrastructure. You're right; they got a lot of questions to answer. They got salary cap stuff to figure out. But I just give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt, as we should. They're a great organization, they're a great team, and just because they lost a ton of close games this year, to me, I didn't think that meant the dynasty was over. The Chiefs are going away. No matter how much people want that to be the case, I didn't think that until I saw Patrick Mahomes on the ground grabbing his knee. And then that changes everything. We just don't know. assume that, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is not a receiver or cornerback. He's not cutting on this thing all the time. But at the same time, like you said, he was relying a lot more on his running game this year. And he's always been one of those guys, even if he's not running for a ton of yards, that does move around a lot. Yes, he's always been a movement quarterback within the pocket. Does that take away from his game? Is he the same Patrick Mahomes? Even the timetable, opening day is less than 9 months away. I mean, he probably will be back for week 1 because he's a tough dude and he wants to be back for week 1. But is that the right, is that the right idea for the Chiefs and everybody else? And it just, again, changes everything. It's not so much of, well, we're just going to run back this thing basically with the same team except Travis Kelce. It is, we don't know what to make of our superstar walk-in first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback anymore. And I think that's a big question. And yes, it was just, if they just lose yesterday to the Chargers, that stinks. But you just say, okay, we're probably due for a down year. I mean, but now everything's different.
Frank, and think about this too. Like, we don't know the mental toll that's going to take, right? I mean, think of like Rodgers, right? He suffers that Achilles. I don't think mentally, in terms of what he's willing to take in terms of hits, now different age, obviously, but 10 years definitely older. Affected him. Which is fair, but he's still a guy who would take hits, right? And Patrick Mahomes is definitely a guy who has taken a lot of hits. Like, he will take hits. He'll stand in, right? Go ahead. I'll take the extra second and get hammered. I'm going to make this completion. Or as Frank said, I'm going to move around. And we also got to consider like the external factors. The Broncos have gotten better. The Broncos are scary now. The Chargers have gotten better. The Chargers are scary now. I mean, God forbid the Las Vegas Raiders get it right at some point, and everybody else catches. As I thought yesterday, I'm
for so there. Much, Charles.
Come on, right? I know. Okay, right? I'm getting a little fantastical now on the podcast. But I sat there and I looked at him on the ground and I thought the AFC's been waiting for a window for the longest time to get in there. If it bleeds, we can kill it. If you're the AFC, you're like, okay, they bleed. They are vulnerable. This is our time. The door is now open for the rest of the AFC.
Yeah, this is the Bills' time here. We'll get to them in a little bit, but I'm going to see them this weekend. They're coming to Cleveland. Josh Allen, Myles Garrett. Does Myles get the record? I mean, it could be. It's good theater either way. But if you're sitting there in Buffalo right now and you're going, all right, guys, we're the 6th seed. We got 10 wins. Like, we can get in. Like, let's keep winning. Let's get in. I know our defense has a million injuries, and I know this is less than perfect. It's a lot of hero ball, and we were down 21-0, but we pulled it out of the fire and we won. And guess what? Patrick Mahomes is not walking through that door. And if the playoffs started today, Lamar Jackson is not walking through that door. We just beat Joe Burrow. Team that everyone said is the new darling. We just beat the Patriots. Okay? Do we have to go to Denver and beat the Broncos? Maybe we could do that. This is Josh Allen's time. I don't have any doubt that Patrick Mahomes can come back. And I have no doubt that the movie, the comeback, joke about the script writers all you want. It'll be a hell of a movie. But Kelce didn't talk after the game. Hollywood Brown didn't talk after the game. I'm with you, C-Rob. I don't expect Travis Kelce to play in 2026. I don't expect him to say it right now, but it wouldn't stun me if in one of the next 2 weeks he makes some kind of announcement with his brother Jason on his podcast that feels right. That's where I would do it as well. I would confide in my brother, a loved one here, and that's how I would say it. It's going to look different. It has to look different when Patrick Mahomes returns next year. You've written openly, we've talked about it on the show, about the fact that they need a legitimate run game. I don't know if Breece Hall would have saved him, because I don't know that Andy would have committed to running Breece Hall as much as they should. But this roster has some issues. They keep trying to fix the O-line. They got Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons had to step away for a little bit, personal issue, go back to California midseason, and then obviously the injury. Everyone's banged up. Injuries happen here. But when he comes back, you have to support him better with the offensive pieces. Do you have faith? I guess that's my question. I'll start with you, Frank. Do you have faith that they could do that?
I do. I just, again, I give the Chiefs a benefit of the doubt. And the infrastructure is not bad. Like, I look at, like, between them and you look at the Bills, the infrastructure around Josh Allen, and I'm saying the Bills have a lot of work to do. I think the Chiefs have work to do, but I don't think it's an overhaul or anything like that. But again, Mahomes changes the math. If you're sitting there and you're the Chiefs, wherever they end up drafting in the first round, you're saying, boy, this linebacker, we'd really like to take care of this safety, cornerback, whatever it is. Now you're like, no, we need to draft a right tackle. We can't deal with this anymore. Patrick can't escape the rush if we have a turnstile right tackle anymore. So it just, again, everything changes within the Chiefs organization with this injury of having to recalculate. Look, you don't want to be the Bengals and just throw Joe Burrow out there and say, sorry, Joe, whatever, like figure it out. You actually want to.
Well, the Bengals needed Joe Burrow to shovel yesterday because he has to do everything. So they needed him to shovel the stands.
You need to make sure all of your offseason now is based around the idea we need to make sure Patrick is safe. And that's never really been the case before. Not that they're leaving him out to dry, but it just changes. Again, the math changes with everything. But I just trust the Chiefs to get this right. Even though salary cap is difficult, all that kind of stuff, it's the Chiefs. And they're still a very, very good football team despite their record. But they need to attack the offseason differently now.
C-Rob, if the playoffs were to start, real quick, let me throw this in. If the playoffs were to start today, which they don't, of course, I did that just for Frank because he hates that. If the season were to end today, which is just like if the playoffs were to start today, the Chiefs would be picking 11th. How does that? That's bonkers.
11.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when you go 7 straight, at least AFC title games, you're always picking, 29th or later, right? 29th, 30th, 31st, 32nd. You're one of the last 4 teams. So this is definitely, from a draft perspective, going to be an opportunity for them there. And, you're right. They took Simmons last year, and I've noticed that Travion Henderson went a few picks later, and I will always wonder what Travion Henderson would have looked like in a Kansas City Chiefs offense. Listen, my question here is, what can you do from a front office standpoint in terms of free agency that will make an impact? What can you do with elevated draft position for the first time in forever that will help Patrick Mahomes? And then I think about the tandem. Andy Reid's 67 years old. How long are Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes going to stay together? Because ultimately, that was what kept the New England Patriots what they were in the long run. Over that 20-year expanse, it was Belichick and Brady and Robert Kraft mediating his ass off. Okay, for 20 years, Robert Kraft just trying to keep these two guys together and not at each other's throats. That ultimately is what kickstarted the second half of that Patriots dynasty. So that to me is what I count on. I believe in them just like Frank does. And you do, Andrew. I don't think it's going anywhere, but I think it's all about those two individuals and how they can grow and change together, which ultimately is what Bill and Tom Brady had to do. As we know, the first 3 Super Bowls, those were Bill's Super Bowls, and the last 3 Super Bowls in New England, those were Tom's Super Bowls. That's how it was divvied up. We'll have to see how the Chiefs can pull off something similar.
Let's hit the other ACL and give a quick and a good 4 minutes here on the Packers. Micah Parsons, same thing, no contact, went down, left ACL. He is done for the year. He is already on social media saying he is going to be back in September. He plans to be ready week 1 for the Packers. But Green Bay now moves on without him. They are the 7 seed after losing in Denver. So Green Bay is 9-4-1, and they get the Bears again. So the same Bears they beat last week at Lambeau. They now go to Chicago on Saturday evening. They could flip positions in the NFC North yet again. Wisconsin Bureau checking in here. Frank, can the Packers do anything in the postseason without Micah Parsons?
I don't think so. I really don't. And I don't want to dismiss them completely because
go ahead, dismiss them if you want to. It'll be a good
call
clip.
Them frauds, maybe. Yeah, I know, right? But as we've talked about over and over, there are no great teams. So could the Packers get into the playoffs, win the division still? Yeah, sure. I can't completely rule it out, but you have to just sit here and say their ceiling is a lot lower. Parsons was the difference maker on their defense. And it's not just Parsons either. They've lost Tucker Kraft. They've had offensive line injuries. This is a Packers season that looks like they're going to look back and say, we had a chance to win it that year, and we just couldn't stay healthy. Now, the 2010 team famously, I think, had more guys on injured reserve than any other Super Bowl champion ever. I believe that's still the case. So you can do it. You can overcome injuries. But when you look at this Packers team, I just don't think they're special without Micah Parsons. And that's why they went and got Micah Parsons. That's why it was such a great acquisition. They kind of revert back to being a good team. They're very good, but I don't know that there's greatness anymore without Micah Parsons. And that stinks. It stinks for the Packers that they had this set up where if everybody was healthy, especially if Kraft and Parsons were healthy, you'd say, yeah, why can't the Packers win a Super Bowl? Who else is standing in their way, really, that they can't beat? I just don't think it's the case anymore. I think that they're even beating the Bears for the NFC North gets a lot tougher without their best player, period. Offense or defense, he is their best player.
Well, not only that, this is on top of Devontae Wyatt. You've already lost a key piece on your defensive line. A lot. Very, very good defensive tackle, interior player. And now you have Parsons on top of it. And I know the pressure metrics are different depending on who's counting them, but almost everywhere you look, he had 80 plus pressures this season. That's an insane number of quarterback pressures without the season being over at this stage. I mean, 80 is just nuts. So they were getting, especially over the last couple of months, they were getting everything they paid for when it came to Micah Parsons. Plus, you're getting an element of leadership, at least on the field. Guys are looking at him and he's creating havoc. That raises the level of everybody else's play. Rashawn Gary, it lessens the amount of attention he's getting. Now, I think, Gary can count on, if you're not seeing consistent double teams, they're coming. Just wait. And I think it shifts all this on Jordan Love now. I think now you're staring at the Packers and you're saying, this has to be Jordan Love's moment. And, he's played some good football. There have been moments, I would say, this season where we've looked at him and said, okay, he looks like he's coming back into that player we saw a couple of seasons ago where he ended the year just, blistering everybody and then beating the Cowboys on the road in the playoffs. This has now got to be Jordan Love's time. It's got to be Jaden Reed's time now that he's back in the lineup. Christian Watson, we'll see ultimately, the injury that he suffered. I think it was the shoulders, not as bad as they thought. Everybody else on that offense has got to come to play now because, look, defensively, they're not going to be that dominant team that we expected to take form by January and shutting out some of these other NFC squads. Look, Jordan Love's got to show he's an all-pro level quarterback. If he is, this is where he shows it. This is where he elevates the team moving forward. Do you believe in that, Andrew? I don't know that I do.
I picked that game when we did our preview show this past Thursday, heading into Week 15. I picked the Packers because, and my rationale was, I believe in Jordan Love more than I believe in Bo Nix. Not to suggest I don't believe in Bo Nix, but they both have defenses. Obviously, the Broncos have a top 2-3 defense. But I just believed that it would come down to the fourth quarter. They always do, and it did. And I believed in Jordan Love a little bit more. It was Bo Nix throwing that beautiful 4th and 3 ball. It was Bo Nix making plays with his legs. Jordan Love made some amazing throws in this game. Pat Surtain's pick on that deep ball, the play in which Watson got hurt. I mean, what a pick by Patrick Surtain. There's a reason he was DPOY. He thought that ball was his. Yeah, that ball's intended for me. Like, the first time I saw that, and I'm on a plane, I'm going back and forth between games on airline Wi-Fi flying home. First time I saw that, I audible gasp. Like, the person sitting next to me, what's going on over here? Just, it was that amazing a play. I believe in the Packers, but no, I do not think that they're a championship team anymore. And it's heartbreaking. It also, there's a cautionary tale here, and maybe this is the offseason think piece. There are two teams that traded multiple first-round picks for big-name defensive help this year. The Green Bay Packers, right before Week 1, gave up the 2 number ones. Parsons had a great year. Charles, you mentioned the pressures, 83 pressures, number 1 in the NFL by my count here, the one that I'm going off from NFL research, and a pressure rate of north of 20%, which is number 1 in the NFL as well. But you lose him here in Week 15, and now your championship prospects are seemingly down the drain. And then the Indianapolis Colts, they give up the 2 number ones for Sauce Gardner, who is out, not season ending, but out right now. But you lose your quarterback. So when you go all in, there is a bust quotient. And yeah, you're left with the hand, and you got to play that hand. And for the Colts, their hand was Phillip Rivers. We'll get to them coming up in a little bit. But coming up next, Frank is gloating. We'll allow Frank his gloat moment. His Denver Broncos have not lost since mid-September. They find a way again. Why nobody wants to go to Denver, and it's not because of the airport. on Inside Coverage. Nobody wants to go to Denver, not because the airport is in Nebraska, but because nobody wants to go to Denver to play the Broncos. They have won 11 consecutive games, and again, they do it somehow in the fourth quarter. Bo Nix played, I don't know, for my money, the best game of his NFL career. 303, 4 touchdowns. He didn't throw a pick. He made plays with his legs. 4th and 3, dropping buckets down the left sideline. Guy's pretty special. And their defense stepped up when needed. I talked about the Pat Surtain pick. That was ridiculous. The Broncos now, I'm going to pull out my clinching scenarios. They're in, by the way. Charles Robinson, Frank Schwab with me here in Inside Coverage. But the Broncos had basically a magic number of 1.5 for the AFC West here. They can clinch the West with a win and a Charger loss, or a tie and a Charger loss this week. They also have a scenario in Week 16, Frank, where they can wrap up the number 1 overall seed in the American Football Conference. I say they're your Broncos. I know they're really not your Broncos, but you do watch your games on Sunday at a Buffalo Wild Wings. No sponsorship. That's just where you are. Surrounded by Broncos fans. You have been hammering us the entire season that we need to respect the Denver Broncos. I'm sorry, Frank. You were right. I was wrong.
I didn't know. It's just people forget about us here in the Mountain Time Zone. Maybe that's why the Broncos have gone under the radar. But there's one 12-2 team in the NFL. It's the Denver Broncos. And I don't know why this narrative took hold that they were just getting lucky every week. I guess, the Giants game, sure, that was luck. But they also made a lot of plays, including Bo Nix making plays. If you watch these games, the defense is nasty. The defense is absolutely championship quality. Their coach is a Hall of Famer. And the offense isn't inept. It isn't one of those offenses where you just say, this can't be fixed. Bo Nix is really up and down, but that means you get some ups from Bo Nix too, like you did yesterday. I think you put everything together. Right now, DVOA's projections have the Broncos 85% to get the 1 seed. If you're 2 home games in Colorado, which has an unbelievable home field advantage because of the altitude, and especially against that defense, if you're 2 home games away from a Super Bowl, why not? What's keeping them from that? That, by the way, would, I think, lock up Sean Payton for a Hall of Fame. I think that it would just, and it's right there for them. They've put themselves in this position. I'm going to say for the 100th time, for people who haven't listened, the 2 losses the Broncos have had all year. No time left on the clock at the Indianapolis Colts. No time left on the clock at the Los Angeles Chargers. They are that close to being 14-0 right now. Yes, they had some lucky wins, but this team has been crazy underrated all year. I don't know why. I don't know if it's this fantasy football centric view that you need to have a good offense to get any respect, because this team does a lot of things well. They're mostly just on the defensive side of the football, but they do them at an excellent level. They're going to win that division. They're going to be the number 1 seed. And yes, they are going to be 2 home games away from a Super Bowl. And it's wide open AFC, and people can knock them off. They're not perfect by any means, but why can't they win 2 home games to make a Super Bowl? I think it would be a cool story, and one that people have been very, very slow to come around.
It's wild to me that this is it's a sudden storyline, because I've talked about this on the show before with you guys. Sean Payton knew this, right, and I brought this up
he said
on the show before. That
Charles,
Sean Payton
why do you think that
came out with anybody who would listen?
I know. Anybody
who would listen
for some
to the
reason,
we have a Super Bowl.
I don't know why they became under.
And
the
people
radar.
thought he was crazy.
Maybe they lost 2 of their first 3. I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, people thought he was nuts, and I'll be honest with you. I sat there, and I was like, wow, he's really just go ahead and laying it all out there. He straight up said the first, talk I had with the team, I told them the Super Bowl is the goal. That's what this team is. He knew what he had in Nick Bonito. He knew what he had in, obviously, Patrick Surtain. His belief in Bo Nix. Although we're still getting there on Bo Nix, but his belief that Bo Nix could be a top 5 quarterback in the next couple years. He didn't say this year. He said the next couple years. Well, look, at Bo Nix plays the way he plays against the Packers. If that's more consistency, if we can get that half of the time out of Bo Nix over the course of a season, yeah, he's probably going to be a top 5 quarterback at some point in the NFL. I think the thing that Peyton saw, on the team was balance. I think he just felt like, look, we've got an offense that's going to come around. We've got a defense that can carry us. And in close games, I'm a good coach. I know I can close out and win close games when it matters. I have the guy under center now, and I can manage the game that I want through this quarterback. I will tip my cap to Sean Payton every single time I can, because at that time I thought, okay, man, Mr. Don't Eat the Cheese he's got a cheese platter. It's a charcuterie plate right now in front of him, and he's doing nothing but eating all of it. I had my second guessing coming out of there, and he's done nothing but, prove me wrong over the course of the season. Not that I doubted them. I thought they'd be a good team. I just didn't think they could be the AFC's number one seed.
Yep.
Man, he's really been every single thing that the Broncos thought they were getting when they hired him. And by the way, how about ownership, right? Because it's not like Sean Payton was the cleanest hire on earth, right? I mean, like, Sean Payton's got a bit of a reputation. I know they really loved Jim Harbaugh. They tried to get Jim Harbaugh out of Michigan. And instead, I felt like they went to the other end of the spectrum and went and got Sean Payton, who's had some warts over the course of his career, is going to show up coming out of the offseason with a tan, right? He's going to walk through those doors having a tan. He'll be on the golf course at times in the offseason. And he's been absolutely fantastic for them. So from the top of that organization to the bottom, I give them credit, because this is what they were reaching for when they hired him. And he thus far has definitely paid.
By the way, real quick, Charles, I just want to point out that part of it.
Go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to point out, Charles, that you're right, because the ownership situation matters so much. Being here in Colorado, I had a front row seat to all of the drama after Pat Bowlen died, and it was very dysfunctional here.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason they didn't make the playoffs for, I believe, 9 straight seasons. The Penner Group came in, completely changed all of that, completely changed the tenor of this organization, probably building a new stadium, plans in place. Everything has changed about the Broncos franchise. And part of that was in a messy search. That was a messy search that year. Going out and being like, let's just go get Sean Payton and fix this thing. And he has. It was a stroke of genius, really, for them.
And a huge part of that as well is keeping Vance Joseph as the defensive coordinator. A huge part of that is drafting well and getting the quarterback right. If you get the quarterback right, the other things can fall into place. And they had the rest of it, not all of it, but certainly that defense is a huge quotient there, a huge portion of it. They had that in place, and they can clinch the number 1 seed in the AFC before Christmas if they were to win this week. And the Broncos, looking at my sheet here, why can't I find the Broncos on my sheet? There, okay, so they get the Jaguars at home, not in any way a cakewalk. They beat the Jaguars. If the Chargers lose at Dallas, if the Bills lose in Cleveland, and if the Patriots lose in Baltimore. So it's a 4-team parlay. They can get the number 1 seed this week. Lock it up before Christmas. And if they choose to, power down. Well, think about it last year. Last year, week 18, they needed to win to get in. It was the Chiefs who came to town with nothing to play for. They had powered down. Now it's the other way around. Denver can coast the final 2 weeks if they hit 4 things coming up this week. Those are the Broncos. The Ravens also found a way to win this week. They only had 21 minutes of possession. This is absurd. Cincinnati had the ball for 39 minutes and got shut out. Like, how on earth does that happen? The Bengals are officially out of it. Ravens beat them 24-0. Ravens playoff chances now at 47%, even though as we sit here right now, they are the 9 seed and they are 2 below the cut line. Lamar Jackson needed only 12 passing attempts in this game. 2 of those 12 went for touchdowns. Cincinnati is probably more of the interesting story. Afterwards, Joe Burrow clarified his comments from his 29th birthday earlier in the week, said he wants to be here. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He's not contemplating retirement. But look, the guy's in a dark spot. And after thinking a lot more about it, and I know we dedicated practically 2 shows to it a week ago, and I really do think part of what got Burrow down last week, and birthdays are hard. Like, human element here, birthdays are hard. It was his 29th. 30 is coming next year. Is, I think, probably, C-Rob, the realization that he's one of the reasons they lost that game in Buffalo. Defense didn't blow it. Defense didn't help. But they blew that 4th quarter lead in Buffalo because he threw 2 picks. I came back. And I wasn't perfect. It's my fault. And then yesterday they're shut out. Jamar Chase concedes in the locker room. Yeah, some things have to change next year, but I'm not going to say what. You have this issue with the seats, the stands weren't shoveled. I mean, just the whole thing looks ugly, discombobulated. Where do the Bengals go from here?
Not great. Yeah, I mean the stands thing, not shoveling is, what are you doing? You're a professional. You're a professional football team, man. Like this is crazy. So I guess apparently,
like the Bills usually say, "Hey, like put it out on social. Yeah. Everybody come to Level. We'll give you $5.
Green Bay does it
$5 to charity."
Yeah, people line up around the block to do it. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Cincinnati fans aren't quite as excited about going and shoveling for this team right now, and that ownership group, right? I mean, ownership. Mike Brown saying, "I paid the quarterback and the 2 wide receivers. We don't have money for shovelers anymore. There's no way we can come and get clear snow." Yeah, I get. Look, first and foremost with Burrow, I get it. There's his mental toll on top of the fact that, look, he's about to turn 30. You go through coming back and failing because losing because you failed versus losing because you scored 40 points and the defense couldn't hold the other team to 39 is a vastly different feeling, surely, on the NFL level. So, Burrow, I'm sure, takes that hard. I've talked before about the Netflix quarterback series and how, to me, he was by far the most interesting guy on that series. Talks a lot about his mental health, his approach, his thoughts, his feelings. Clearly somebody that, experiences things and isn't afraid to show it at times when he's not in the right mental headspace. And Chase saying some things have to change. Yeah, no kidding. Where are they going to get the money out of that ownership group now after they felt like they've already paid to the hilt? And, B, who are you going and getting? Like, what is the plan? Because defensively, it needs a years long overhaul. That's not something that you're going to change in one season. You're going to lose Trey Hendrickson. To me, you're looking at 2-3 years. I mean, the Lions have been working on fixing their defense, and that's been years of investment, and it still hasn't gotten even close to right. It's such a monumental build that's left ahead. And I think what I think about with Burrow is he experiences these injuries and not to keep going back to Luck, but part of Luck's retirement was the struggle to constantly come back, the struggle to suffer it, live through it, and then do all of physical therapy, the mental drain that comes along with it, and then just getting to a point where you're just spent. Well, Burrow's done that. I mean, it's like almost every season we see Burrow suffering through some kind of an injury and then having to go through the physical therapy and the mental toll to drag himself out of it. That's got to stop at some point. And if it doesn't, I'm going to continue to wonder, how long is this guy going to want to do this? He's going to have a ton of money in the bank, and you can only live through how many 5-12 seasons, right? How many, 8-9 seasons, never really getting there. And one other thing I'll bring up, and I'll ask you guys this. Do you think maybe he reached the Super Bowl too early? I think sometimes in guys' careers, if you come into the league and you're able to achieve that stage fairly quickly after a season or 2 or 3, it doesn't sink in how exceedingly hard it is to do that. And it makes everything
years. After so much worse. When you've made the Super Bowl, you've experienced that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're 8 and 9. You're saying this sucks.
Yeah. I get that. And we've heard, and Andrew, you too. I know over the course of the 20 plus years I've covered the NFL, I've heard guys say, "Oh yeah, we went to the Super Bowl my rookie year, or my second year. I thought it was just normal. Like that was what we were going to do."
Yeah.
No clue. And all of a sudden they're in year 10 going, "Man, I didn't think I was never going to be back after that. I had no idea." It's like Dan Marino, right? Thought you were going to go back because you went so early, never went again.
Right. real quick, I want to tell you, like, here's my Sunday. So we talk about what I'm going to write for winners and losers, just try to get an idea. We adjust our day, and me and Joey, our NFL editor, had said, Bengals Ravens seems pretty ripe for a good storyline coming out of it. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I was watching that game a little bit more than the other 7. And I had known about the Burrow comments. And when he made the comments, I'm like, that's weird, but I don't want to overreact. I didn't want to play amateur psychologist like a lot of people did. Oh, this definitely means he wants out for the Bengals, whatever. That's hard to do. And but it was significant. It was not a nothing. Like, he was saying that for a reason. And so, but anyway, I'm watching that game, kind of focused on it. And I'll be honest with you guys, I couldn't believe how checked out Joe Burrow looked. And again, body language police is usually dumb. Amateur psychology is usually dumb. But it's impossible to just watch the way he played. And there just didn't seem to be any emotion. He didn't seem really like he wanted to be playing football on that day. And that's the first time I've seen that out of Joe Burrow. He is a Joe Cool, right? He's not he's not Phillip Rivers, right? He's not that animated all the time. But this just looked off. It looked so off. And then he played the worst game of his career. Second worst rating of his career. The worst was week 1 last year against the Browns. Or 2 years ago, I think it was, against the Browns. And he just looked like a guy who just didn't want to play football. And again, I know it's bad. I just said it's bad to play amateur psychologist, and I'm trying to do it, but it was impossible not to make that connection between his comments on Wednesday and how he played on Sunday and how it just looked. Everything looked off. And now he was asked a couple questions after the game, and he said, guys, it was not anything against Cincinnati. My comments had nothing to do with playing for the Cincinnati Bengals. It had to do with my mindset and the way football fits in that right now. And you're like, wow, that's a heavy quote. There's a lot said in just a few words right there. And how could you not? And you just brought up Andrew Luck. How could you not? Like, Andrew Luck did it differently. He never came public with anything. He never hinted at anything in press conference. It just happened one night when we were watching preseason
Barry
football.
Sanders his way out of town. He just
Absolutely.
called one day and said, guys, thanks.
Yeah. How could you not think that that's at least partially what's going on with Joe Burrow here? I think it's a fascinating story. I really do. And I don't think this is one of those things where he's just angling to get the coach fired or angling to get a trade or whatever people are speculating on. I think this is serious.
But that is a conversation. Let's be honest here.
It's tough.
Injuries or no, I can't say injuries or no injuries, because Joe Burrow injury is season altering. There's no other way to put it. But this is going to be the 3rd consecutive year that a Bengals team that pays Joe Burrow, or has Joe Burrow on their roster and in their building and in their program, is going to miss the postseason. And you do have to rework the defense, which they attempted to do in this offseason. You not only pay Trey Hendrickson, but you draft a defense-heavy class. Again, you get rid of Lou Anarumo, who's doing just fine in Indianapolis, isn't he? You bring in Al Golden, who used to be in the system as the linebacker coach, had success at Notre Dame as the defensive coordinator. This is going to fix it all. The entire offseason in Cincinnati, there was one story and one story only, one narrative. Well, I take that back. Once you get the contracts and the holdouts and all that, but they paid the guys. But it was all about starting fast, finishing strong. What are we going to do differently to A, fix the defense, but B, make sure we're good in September? Right? That's it. I mean, that seems like a million years ago now, and they're limping to the finish line. It should be noted that Zach Taylor today was adamant that, unlike in Washington, where the Commanders have said that they're shutting down Jaden Daniels, he is done for the season. They're not going to put him out there again for the final 3 games. Joe Burrow is going to play for the Bengals. They go to Miami this week and face the Dolphins, who, as we sit here today recording this episode, have yet to play their Week 15 Monday night game in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. But Joe Burrow is going to keep on playing. And when asked why, because the immediate follow was, hey, Zach, why is he going to keep playing? He said, because we want to win. We want to win. Period. Okay?
Andrew.
So Burrow's going to go out there, and the body language observers, Frank, are going to keep observing. Because no matter look, if the Bengals win their final 3 games, or forget it, like, you want to go back to fantasy stats, Joe Burrow lights it up in the final 3 games. There's a pep in their step, and it just feels different. Right. Then the story's probably going to go away. If they go meekly into the night, as they did yesterday, this thing ain't going away. I got into an animated conversation Friday night with one of my best friends, who I've mentioned here on the show, who is a passionate Bengals fan, who was just unnerved, to put it nicely, by the national narrative, national almost wishing that Joe Burrow wants to be out. He wants out. I know he wants out. Tell us the truth. He wants out. Like, we want this story. he was unnerved by it. Like, why does this have to be shots at the organization and Joe Burrow wants out and this is all the organization's fault? And why is everyone always picking on them? Like, I get it. They've deserved it in the past, but why? Like, this is not what this is. I'm like, okay. But until he says that, which he did yesterday, and until we see more evidence that he's truly telling the truth, it's not going to go away, for better or for worse, for fair or for foul. Seasonal depression is real. Birthdays suck. All of that can also be true. So,
just real quick. Just want to say this. Don't you feel like they're in a corner? There's no other play, I think, now at this point, because you can't end it now for him.
You have to play him,
as you said, Andrew, you have to play him now because you have to roll the dice
100%.
And hope that you get that momentum. There's no other option on the table.
Good point.
But to send him into the offseason on a lighter note.
On a positive note.
You can't
have to.
You can't send him out
if there
like
is
this.
no positive note, then you got to figure out what to do with your coach.
You got to figure out what to do.
Because those conversations,
like literally everything,
as well.
It's really bad.
Right?
Like I was stunned at what I saw at Cincinnati yesterday. I was stunned at watching Joe Burrow. I literally was sitting there like, wow, is everybody seeing this? Because it was really weird. It was really,
or look at the Raiders.
Unlike anything I've really seen recently.
Look at the Raiders. Pete Carroll says he's not coaching for his job. They were not very competitive. I did not watch that game, but I look at the box score. It doesn't seem that with Kenny Pickett, they were any more competitive than they would have been a week ago with Geno Smith. Pete Carroll says he's not coaching for his job. There's an old phrase that a good friend of mine put in my head years ago about relationships, not about football, but it's all the same. And that phrase is, if it's inevitable, make it immediate. So I don't know that it is inevitable in Cincinnati. I don't. But these next 3 weeks will certainly bear watching. Is it inevitable that the Colts are done? Or did we see enough from Phillip Rivers yesterday to give a shred of hope? Coming up next, what we saw in Seattle on Inside Coverage. It is Inside Coverage here on Yahoo. I love you guys, by the way. I'm Andrew Siciliano. I love you, the audience, but I love C-Rob and Frank here as well. We're about to get to Phillip Rivers, but during the break, and yes, we do go to breaks and reset, obviously, we were just joking about the whole Brandon Ayuk thing. Brandon Ayuk. I always go back to the Office Space line. I don't like my job, and I'm not going to go anymore. Literally, he just stopped going. And Kyle Shanahan yesterday, I don't know, I haven't seen him in a month. Like, where is he? Damned if I know. He's not here. He's just
Andrew,
walking away from
this
like
was
25
before
million.
you, but I couldn't be found for an hour, and Charles thought I was dead. He called everybody in Colorado trying to figure out where I was. Dude, Brandon,
we did a welfare check at Frank's house with the police.
Castle Rock police at my front door.
I do hope he's okay. I mean,
it's the
aside,
Office Space. Hey, remember, it's the Office Space where it's like his answering machine has like 40 messages on it.
Yeah,
it's Kyle. Kyle reminded him about the TPS reports.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Through all of that, you had the flip side of it, like Phillip Rivers going like, "Hell yeah, I want to come into the office." A couple of weeks before his health insurance was about to run out, Phillip Rivers comes back to get health insurance. God love him. I mentioned a couple of times I was freezing at Soldier Field yesterday, or as the old-timers call it, Soldiers Field. Leave the last S off for frostbite. Doesn't even make sense. But as soon as I got into the car to get to sit in traffic on the Kennedy, trying to go to O'Hare, I just wanted to see this Colts game. Like, all I wanted to see. And they're going to be on Monday Night Football next week. And Phillip Rivers is going to be the starting quarterback against the 49ers. As we sit here right now, the Colts, who they did lose to the Seahawks, and they are right now the 8th seed in the AFC at 8-6. So they're below the cut line. And the schedule is brutal. San Francisco, Jacksonville, and Houston. Frank, he's a winner. I don't remember, did you have him as a winner or a loser in your column? Did you even touch this one? He is a winner because he threw that back shoulder ball. He got Bailey Groupie into position for a 60-yard chip shot, which is what he made it look like. He basically had beaten the Seahawks. Like, the story was written. Old man comes off couch and beats the Seahawks. But, of course, give Sam Darnold credit and Jason Myers, they pulled it out of the fire at the end. I don't know that I'm a believer, but I want to keep watching this movie.
Yeah, and I think everybody by now has seen the Philip Rivers quote after the game. If you hadn't, go find it, because it's just good. Just the old dad advice, basically grandpa advice, I guess, at this point. Philip Rivers basically saying, look, easy thing for me to do would be to not try. But I tried. Was I scared? Yeah. There's a part of me that was a little scared to be doing this. But I hope young people, including my high school players, my kids, watch this and say, hey, if coach wasn't scared, I shouldn't be scared. I thought that was awesome. Yep. I think the whole story, the scene of his high school kids, the ones he's been coaching, going crazy when he throws his first touchdown, like, beautiful story, and just honestly a heartbreaking loss for the Colts, because they just beat a team that a lot of people think is the best team in football. I think they're number 2. And they should have won in Seattle with a guy who literally wasn't even under contract 7 days earlier and played in the NFL in 5 years. To lose that game, I think is just awful. But I don't want to take anything away from the story. It's great. No. Like it was so fun yesterday watching Philip Rivers play football again. Again, the quote at the end I thought was great for anybody. It's just good to have Philip Rivers back in our lives. It really is. Win or lose. And I think everybody in America outside of Washington was rooting for the Colts, right? Maybe even some people in Washington were like, this is a pretty cool story. But yeah, I just thought it was a great comeback for Philip Rivers, even in a crushing loss, because he's just great for the NFL.
Yeah, I remember sitting there and I'm watching him, and all of a sudden I hear Dawn say, he's more round than I remember. I was like, hey.
Hey now. Hey.
I'm like, leave him
We're still
alone,
talking about
right?
Philip here.
Come on.
The round mound of rebound off the couch to play football again.
He's in his 40s, for God's sake. Well, lay off. Leave a guy he hasn't played in a long time, okay? He's enjoying his life. Relax, okay? Just
he's not Bob Wiley.
What he's going to do. Yeah, I'm like, look, it was fun to watch. You know, the emotion out there was great. I hate to be the heavy here, but afterward, you know, we got Shane Steichen getting asked about Anthony Richardson and, you know, opening up his practice window and potentially getting him back in. And Steichen turns into, like, you know, a Curb Your Enthusiasm meme of Larry David being like, like, I don't know, maybe. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I'm like, dude, I don't know, Anthony Richardson, how you feel about this right now. This is crazy, but yeah, look, it's a good story. It was a fun watch. I was with you, Andrew. I thought he had won the game, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. I'm like, that's it. He won it. And then obviously it flips the other way.
This is happening.
Totally crazy. And not only that, again, it's not like it wasn't against a league drag, right? It's the freaking Seattle Seahawks in that stadium. You can't hear yourself, you know, talk at that point in the game. You know, it was
and it's not just because he's old that he couldn't hear.
No. I explained to Dawn about the earthquake during the Marshawn Lynch run, and you know, the run, the Beastquake. So no, I don't have a ton to say about it other than it was enjoyable to watch it, and I think it's because when you watch sports and you know someone is doing something that they love and taking a chance, and again, there's a lot of mid-40s guys out here watching it and going, all right, that's probably how I look worse than that in a football uniform, but it was enjoyable for sure.
I was interviewing Kevin Stefanski before the game for the Browns radio network, our pregame hit, and I had looked it up before I sat down. Philip Rivers is exactly 5 months to the day older than Kevin Stefanski. Kevin, for those who don't know, had a good college. Yeah, really? Kevin had a good college career. He played 4 years at Penn. He was a really good safety. He was an all Ivy League defensive back. He was a good football player. And I said, he's 5 months older, and Philip is older than 14 NFL head coaches. Kevin's just one of them. I said, how many plays could you give me today? He's like, none. And he goes, no, one. I could basically, because now that you're allowed to have the extra guy out there for the kickoff, I could hold the ball and then like run back to the side. Right. I give you one. I was afraid when he got hit. That was what I was concerned with.
Yeah.
And
he barely got hit. He took one sack. Like, he played really well.
I know. I don't like. I fear the popped calf or the muscle pull or the old man ailment, not just because of age, but because of the fact that he hadn't been in shape. Like, throwing before practice a couple of times a week for your high school team is not the same as going through a training camp. Or maybe he has the benefit of not having to go through a training camp and his arm isn't dead. One way or the other. I'm with you, guy. I'm with you here, C-Rob, in terms of being Debbie Downer. I don't see them having a great shot. They have to. They get San Francisco, Jacksonville at home, and then Houston on the road. Who knows what that game means at that point? It likely means something for Houston. Who knows if it still means anything for Indianapolis? But I am here for the movie. All right. Time for one more thing, friends, before we go. Frank, you go first.
I just want to give a shout out to a guy who, I've been critical of. Everybody has over the years. Trevor Lawrence yesterday had his best game as an NFL player. We're in our 106th season of NFL football, and he is the first man to ever accomplish having 5 passing touchdowns in a game, a rushing touchdown, and 50 rushing yards. Also threw for 300 yards. He has been really good lately. His last 3 games, he's thrown for 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. And yes, the opponents haven't been great, but you look at it and you say, is it possible that Trevor Lawrence with Liam Cohen, who we all thought, hey, he's going to fix Trevor Lawrence. He's a great offensive coach. He's going to come in there. Maybe it just took a while. Maybe now that we're in our 4th month into this relationship of the regular season, maybe things are clicking for Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen. I mean, they're 10-4. They have a good shot to win that division. They're going to go to the playoffs. I just want to say, you know what? Trevor Lawrence has had his ups and downs, but his last few weeks he's played really well. And yesterday he was marvelous. Like he played like we expected Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson quarterback, to play when he got to the NFL. Hats off to Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, who are really, we talk about under the radar teams. I complain about Denver not getting it. Nobody's talking about Jacksonville just because they're Jacksonville and nobody really talks about them. They're 10-4. Like, Liam Cohen's doing a heck of a job. And again, Trevor Lawrence had one of the best days any NFL quarterback has had in a really long time yesterday.
What do you got?
Yeah, and I'm like falling all over myself here.
No, go talk. I cut you off. I derailed your train of thought. Please, you tag Frank or give me your one more thing. See, Rob, the floor is yours.
Yeah, the Trevor Lawrence. I mean, it was a Clemson stat line for sure. It was a lot of fun to watch. No, I want to talk about Lenora Sellers, the South Carolina quarterback, who I think if he had declared for this draft, once the workouts were done, I think he probably would have been a first-round pick. 6'3", 245-pound guy, sophomore at South Carolina. Huge things expected of him this year at South Carolina. And, not his best season. I don't think he took the strides that a lot of people thought. Well, interestingly enough, he announced that not only is he not going in the NFL draft, he's staying at South Carolina. And, this percolated a little bit in the personnel community because I think – some evaluators wanted to see him stay in college, but maybe enter the transfer portal and go to a school with a scheme and some surrounding pieces that could better groom him for the 2026 draft. But it's certainly big news, the 2027 draft. It's big news now for the 2027 draft with Lenora Sellers staying back an extra season. And it'll be on Shane Beamer now to change a lot of the pieces and parts around him to get the most out of him heading into 2026 college football season.
He was a guy that a lot of people had circled, a lot of smart football people had circled as the number 1 overall pick before college football began this year. Well, if Arch doesn't come out, it's Lenora Sellers. He's wired the right way. He's a leader. He's a dude. He's got the amazing athletic ability. He's got everything you want. He's a damn good quarterback. And there are others would say, well, maybe he does what Cam Ward does. Maybe he just goes to Miami when Beck leaves and gets the bag down there and then repositions himself for the number 1 pick in 2027 or a top 5 pick in 2027. Going back to South Carolina, I did not necessarily have on the dance card or on my bingo card, but hey, good for him. All around good guy. And look ahead to 2027. My one more thing is not the Bills comeback, but the Patriots collapse on Sunday. And Jory Epstein, our friend, is going to be here tomorrow. She wrote about it. She was there, said maybe it was the kind of wake-up call, the humble pie, as they put it, that the Patriots needed. That was the first time in 105 home games that the Patriots had lost with a 21-point lead. 21-point lead at home. They had won 104 consecutive games. My initial reaction to that was, they've led by 21 in 104 home games? That's a lot of blowouts.
Yeah, that stadium hasn't been around that long. Wow.
That's a lot. There are plenty of games where you win 17-10, where you don't have a 21-point lead, where you win 21-7, and you don't have a 21-point lead. There are 104 instances of them having a 21-point lead at home, and they did not blow any of them. So, guys, my final thought, one more thing other than that, is I just want you to know that before we reconvene for Tuesday's show, all I need is 55 points tonight from DK Metcalf to rally and win my fantasy playoff game.
50, you need a Kyle Pitts game. That's what you need. You need a Kyle Pitts game.
If I had started Kirk Cousins and I had him on my bench on Thursday night, all I would need is like 18 points. Yeah. Nope. I started Shador over Kirk Cousins. Not because I didn't believe in Kirk Cousins. I just kind of forgot the whole thing with the Bucs. You know, Kirk and the Bucs. Kirk will play the Bucs every week. He'd be the number 1 overall pick in fantasy. Alas, he cannot. Schedule rules do not allow. For Charles Robinson and for Frank Schwab, my name is Andrew Siciliano. When next we speak, my fantasy team will be eliminated. Thank you for listening to and watching Inside Coverage. Wow.